There's a moment, late at night, when it's just you, the code, and the silence. No Slack, no meetings, just the soft glow of your screen, the ticking clock, and a blinking cursor waiting for your next move. That's when the editor fades, when the code flows straight from your mind and the tool gets out of the way. Atom was born in that silence. Not as a product, not even as an app, but as a rebellion against editors that told you how to work, instead of asking how you wanted to. At the time, most editors were fast, but rigid. You had to learn their shortcuts, obey their structure, adapt to their quirks. Atom flipped that idea. What if your editor adapted to you? What if it bent to your will, not the other way around? Atom asked that question out loud, and it built the answer in the most unlikely way, using web technologies, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. It didn't just open code files, it opened up possibility. To understand Atom's origin, you have to start with GitHub. By 2011, GitHub had changed the game. It wasn't just a code host, it was a social platform for developers. Forks, pull requests, issues, stars. GitHub made open source collaborative in a way SourceForge and Bitbucket never had. Its culture was centered on flexibility, experimentation, and accessibility. Atom emerged from this exact mindset, a belief that development tools should be as malleable and social as the code itself. Now back to the spark. Nathan Sobo was in college, studying both linguistics and computer science, when he was tasked with visualizing the logic behind natural language. Most saw a dull syntax tree. Nathan saw elegance. He created a Ruby DSL called Treetop, a way to describe grammar elegantly and flexibly. But Treetop was just the beginning. Nathan didn't want to parse language, he wanted to build a live editor that understood what you typed in real time. That dream would eventually become Atom. Years later, GitHub was exploding. Nathan pitched his editor idea to co-founder Chris Wanstrath, who didn't hesitate. He'd wanted the same thing since 2008. They showed Nathan an absurd prototype. A text editor running in Safari, using HTML elements as text nodes, DOM manipulation, in-browser rendering. It was chaotic, magical. Nathan thought, this is insane. Then, I'm in. GitHub backed the project. Nathan moved to Boulder, Colorado. No teammates, no office, just him and a prototype. It was lonely, he admitted, but in that solitude he laid the foundation for a radical new tool. Not compiled from C, not rigid, but built like a website and powerful enough to build software. A recursive dream. There was one problem: no runtime. There was no engine to fuse Node.js, the backend, with Chromium, the front end. So they built one. They called it Atom Shell. A developer named Cheng Zhao hacked together a way to inject Node's APIs into Chromium's render loop. It worked. That hack evolved into something much bigger: Electron. Electron changed everything. It let developers use web skills to build desktop apps, something previously unthinkable. Suddenly, web developers could build native-feeling apps for Windows, macOS, and Linux. Slack, Discord, Notion, Postman, Microsoft Teams, even Visual Studio Code were all Electron-based. Electron democratized desktop software. But it also came at a cost: memory usage, slower performance, and the now infamous Chrome inside Chrome jokes. Still, the revolution was underway, and Atom had lit the fuse. Atom's public beta launched on February 26, 2014. The internet exploded. GitHub received over 100,000 invite requests in a single week. By 2015, it had over 1.3 million downloads and nearly 650,000 monthly active users. But it also had problems. Performance was a constant drag. Atom was sluggish. Menus lagged. CoffeeScript, used for much of Atom's core, was falling out of favor. Large files, anything over 10 MB, could freeze the editor. RAM usage ballooned to 800 MB, while Sublime Text ran at 70 MB. Startup times averaged 3 seconds. Even basic features like multi-cursor editing stuttered. And yet, developers loved it. One early reviewer called it sublime with superpowers. It shipped with Git integration, a command palette, and built-in CLI tools like Atom and APM. But its most radical feature? Packages. Every feature from tabs to search to settings was just a package. If you didn't like how something worked, you could fork it. Atom was a living, editable universe. You weren't just a user, you were a co-creator. Atom wasn't just beloved by individual coders. Teams embraced it too, especially those working on open source or distributed stacks. With its modular design, you could build tooling directly into the editor, linters for CI, syntax rules from your company style guide, even live preview panes for documentation. For many, Atom became the front end to their entire development pipeline. Code review became more seamless. Inline Git diffs, file history, blame annotations, all extensible. Atom's open architecture blurred the line between editor and workflow hub. Years later, tools like CodeRabbit, which bring AI-assisted code review inside editors, followed the same Atom principle. The idea that your editor should understand more than your keystrokes. It should understand your work. Between 2015 and 2017, Atom hit its golden age. Over 7,000 packages were created. Facebook released Nuclide, a full IDE built on top of Atom. GitHub launched Teletype, a groundbreaking experiment in live collaboration. Developers could share their session in real time, like Google Docs but for code. It was ambitious, flawed, but deeply ahead of its time. It wasn't just popular, it was beloved. Developers didn't just use Atom, they customized it, shaped it, owned it. Some wrote blog posts on how they built their perfect workflow. Others published their entire config as GitHub gists. YouTube tutorials sprang up showing how to replicate VS Code's look inside Atom, before VS Code had even caught on. The editor felt alive, in motion, always evolving. One user called it a hacker's playground, another the gateway drug to open source. Under the hood, the team pursued another moonshot, a tool called Tree Sitter. It was an incremental parsing engine, designed to give Atom a real-time syntax tree for every language. Unlike regex-based grammars, Tree Sitter parsed code as it was typed, fast, accurate, and language-aware. Atom couldn't fully ship it before sunsetting, but Tree Sitter would go on to power syntax highlighting in tools like NeoVim, VS Code, and Z. But despite its innovation, Atom was struggling. Its performance couldn't compete with native editors. And then came the game changer, Visual Studio Code. Released by Microsoft in 2015, VS Code was also built on Electron, but backed by a colossal team. It improved fast, performance was tighter, extensions more reliable. By 2018, VS Code had already overtaken Atom in usage. In 2021, it held over 70% of the market. Atom, less than 13%. Then, the twist. Microsoft acquired GitHub in June 2018. Atom and VS Code were now under the same roof. GitHub's new CEO, Nat Friedman, promised that Atom would live on. Atom remains key to GitHub, he said. We'll continue to support both editors. But development slowed. Teletype stalled. Package updates dwindled. Atom's public activity dropped to a whisper. And in its final commit to the package manager, a quiet message, add sunset message. On June 8, 2022, GitHub quietly posted a blog entry, sunsetting Atom. The reason? Declining usage. A shift to the cloud, focus on code spaces. By December 15, Atom was archived. A decade-long dream folded into history. Behind the scenes, another blow landed. In early 2023, GitHub suffered a security breach. Its code signing certificates were compromised. One of the affected components? Atom. The last update, post-shutdown, was a forced downgrade for security. It was symbolic. The final flicker of a once-burning light. But the truth is, Atom didn't die because of one fatal flaw. It died by 1,000 cuts. It was slow, yes, but more importantly, it lost momentum. When Microsoft acquired GitHub, all eyes turned to Atom and VS Code. One had a tiny team, the other had hundreds of engineers and an aggressive roadmap. While VS Code surged ahead, integrating with Azure, polishing performance, building for the cloud, Atom drifted. Inside GitHub, enthusiasm slowly waned, developers moved to other teams, the roadmap thinned, community-maintained packages were abandoned, even popular themes and linters saw fewer commits. Teletype updates became rare, performance bugs went unpatched for months. Atom was still there, still working, but the pulse had slowed. For longtime users, it was like watching a brilliant musician stop playing. The silence grew louder. Teletype stalled. Tree Sitter never fully shipped. Updates slowed. And developers moved on, not out of anger, but apathy. The ideas were bold, the ambition was there, but in the end, Atom didn't collapse, it faded. And by the time GitHub officially pulled the plug, most of the community had already walked away. But some dreams don't die, they fork. A community rose to resurrect the project, calling it Pulsar, same codebase, same package ecosystem, with fresh energy. Meanwhile, Nathan Sobo launched Zed, a modern editor written in Rust, offering native performance, multiplayer collaboration, and the same philosophy that Atom carried in its DNA. Atom wasn't perfect, but it was personal. It asked a simple question: what if our tools served us, not the other way round? And it answered with flexibility, with collaboration, with heart. Atom showed us that developers deserve tools that are open, hackable, and human. It taught thousands how to shape their environment, not just work inside it. In the end, Atom was never just code, it was a question, a challenge, a quiet rebellion against closed boxes and rigid rules. And though it's gone, it lives on in the hearts of those who opened it for the first time, saw a folder named Packages, and thought, wait, I can change this? And in the silence of late-night coding, where it all began, you can still feel it. That moment, when the editor fades away, and it's just you, the code, and a tool that's truly yours. Built with love, by GitHub, and remembered by us.